Welcome to the Fast Host ProActive podcast, Spill the IT. Each episode, we'll sit down with some of the amazing ProActive team and chat through their experiences of the ups and downs of IT infrastructure management in small businesses. There's always plenty to chat about.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Graham, and I am your host for today for what is unbelievably our 10th podcast here at Fast Host ProActive. I can't believe we're already into episode 10. We're really privileged today to be joined by Simon Yeoman, who is the CEO of Fast Host and Fast Host ProActive. Simon, good morning.
Good morning. Really pleased to be here.
Yeah, and thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here too. So you're going to do a far better job of actually telling everybody a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do here at Fast Host and Fast Host ProActive. So I'll let you share. Take it away.
So I'm the CEO of Fast Host and Fast Host ProActive, and Fast Host ProActive is the sort of brainchild of me and the rest of the senior team. And I think it's a really important and exciting development for us, and we're really pleased to be moving the business in that direction. I've been with Fast Host for longer than I sort of probably would care to admit, but I think it's almost 15 years now, and done various guises in that time, and had a variety of roles. And more recently, I've been CEO since 2018, I think. So, and steered through various sort of challenges and opportunities, and like I said, Fast Host ProActive is a very sort of exciting development for us.
Yeah, fantastic, and we'll weave that in. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go through today. But today's podcast is entitled "The Truth Behind Better Environmental and Sustainable Practices with Cloud Services." And Simon, I know this is something that you're really passionate about, and that's why we've got you on today to do this one-to-one. So how is your role here at ProActive? How have you seen that landscape change in relation since you started, and where it is currently today, and possibly where is it going in the future?
Okay, so I think as a society we've changed, even in the longer space of time that I've been with Fast Host. Like I said, it's 15 years. There's been quite a lot of sort of societal change in that period, and I think I'm very privileged to be sort of running a business at this time. I think as a society we're a lot more community, but also focused on wider society. And running a business isn't so much around, okay, what's the bottom line, Simon? What your results in the last quarter or the last annual results. And we are very conscious about other topics, and they might be sort of community-based topics where what's our role in the local community, and we're sort of continue to be very committed to the Gloucester community and see a sort of longer-term future. But for this particular subject, we're also very conscious of the wider impact that we have, not on just our society but our environment in particular. And I think it's something that all businesses should be a lot more conscious of, and I'd like to think we're probably ahead of this game, but I do see in sort of years to come that there'll be more regulation in this area, and we will all be asked to report on these types of topics. But I think for you to have a meaningful impact in today's society, you need to be conscious of these types of topics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I see it, you see it, business in general, they're paying so much more attention to how businesses are conducting themselves with that. We talk about greenwashing, where people are just talking about it for talking about its sake, but actually demonstrating. And also as well, when you're pitching for business, how much weighting, as in score, do customers put on that, how you conduct yourselves as a business. Simon, why don't you just tell us a little bit about the culture here at Fast Host? How's that weaving into the culture of the business in general, and all the great people you have working here?
So, like I said, it's an IT-based business, and we are sort of very conscious of our impact. We need to be conscious of our impact. We run a data center, and I'm sure we'll come on to the impact that data center has.
Yeah.
But that that heightens your consciousness around the impact that you're having on the environment in particular. And for a long time now, we've been very sort of these topics have been very important to us. We use the right tools to help collaboration over sort of various distances, and that enables us to sort of cut down on things like commuting and things like that. I think we're also very conscious, even in our offices, that we want to provide the right facilities and we provide the right services to our employees, such as cycle to work, and whether that be sort of traditional cycles or e-cycles and things like that. And I think, we've recently launched an EV scheme for our staff as well to give access to benefits that have a sort of, they're beneficial to the employee, but they're also a wider sort of environmental and society benefit. And we're very keen that that's the right thing to do for the environment. We also think our employees think it's the right thing to do for the environment, and therefore it makes us become a better employer of choice as a result of that.
Yeah, interesting. We've done a podcast about obviously the issues around resources and the lack of resources in the marketplace, and people that are obviously keeping everything on-prem, and they're finding it really difficult to employ people. How important do you believe that when people are coming here to consider work and making applications, do they make that as a big part of what they ask you, or the people in general here, about what your sustainability or what your approaches is to the environment?
I think when I work with our sort of talent management, that they're increasingly, it's a question that gets asked more and more.
Yeah.
And if you take me out of the equation, I'm a sort of I wouldn't like to admit whether I'm Gen Z or Gen Y, but increasingly, as the workforce of today, it's they get to choose who they work for more often than not, and there's less gift in the employer, and it's really important that we are sort of providing the environment and creating the type of employer that people want to work for and with.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, where pay probably used to be and benefits used to be the primary consideration. Now you're probably finding people have a wider perspective of what they're considering, yeah?
So I think pay and benefits will always be a very important hygiene factor, but it at the moment, particularly with the way that our employment market is, there's employees are able to choose their employer, and we need to make sure that we're attractive to them. And that's why we're sort of conscious of these topics, but there is a sort of wider long-term future that we all need to look after our environment, and that might be the very local environment, it could be the sort of wider global environment, and we've all got sort of to look after that. It's a very precious thing.
Of course
I've got children. My children are likely, probably some point, maybe not yet, to have children at some point.
It's going to happen.
And we have a responsibility. We're sort of we're only sort of temporary custodians of what we're looking after.
Of course we are. Well, our friends at Greenpeace, when they talk about it, so they've estimated this back in 2020, that by 2025, the technology centre could consume 20% of the world's total electricity. And that's an increase that was, at the time, 7%. And obviously they attribute that to the expansion of the cloud and cloud computing, and obviously with the further development now of AI, which is absolutely massive. What's your view on that, and how should IT infrastructures be looking to minimise this impact? Because it's going to become very much of a hot topic.
Yep. And there's various different aspects to this. We run a big data center environment, and that that's our sort of, that has been our primary focus. That's where we have the biggest impact. For a long time now, we've made sure that all of our energy that we consume is 100% renewable, and that's before I've been in this role, the decisions that we've made. There were times 10 years ago when we had a selection of two to choose from of 100% renewable providers, and we made the conscious decision, and we weren't as worried about the cost of that energy. We were more worried about the right type of energy. And so it's something that we've always been conscious about, and increasingly so. We've invested heavily, Fastos and the wider group, in a data center. And we are very conscious about that sort of from the fabric of the building, we've tried to make sure the fabric of the building is made out of sustainable-based materials. We are very conscious that has to be a very energy-efficient data center. We've put a sort of solar panel farm on the roof, and that can generate almost sort of 40% of the power. I think it's 525 kilowatts of power can be generated in that area. And we've thought about every aspect of that build to the point where even the sort of backup generators, they use biofuel, so we've sort of resisted any type of diesel, and as a result of that, the way that we're generating power and the way that our backup systems, we're probably we've managed to reduce our emissions by over 90% as a result of those decisions.
That's a big statistic.
Yeah, it is, and that's our key and our primary contribution. There's more to do, and I've talked about the past and future. I'd love to develop a way that all that heat that we generate, we've got somebody on, local to us that can repurpose that heat and use it in a factory nearby, or it can go and heat homes in the West Midlands where our data centre is, and we are very keen to look at those types of opportunities. So we've dealt with the immediate issue right in front of us. Yeah. We've really cut down on our emissions, but there's other stuff that we can do more proactively, to choose the pun of Fasto's proactive, where we can sort of not only just reduce what we're doing and reduce our impact, but also have a more positive impact and use the heat that we generate in our data center to power other people around us.
Yeah, really interesting. I would imagine the technical specification, the architectural specification, took quite some time to get that right. Did it take longer, or did you have the perfect partner to work with when you were designing
it took longer, and obviously, it's we used a certain amount of third-party expertise, but also within our group, we've got a lot of history and a lot of experience in this area, and one of the uniqueness about our data center build is we've managed to get that energy efficiency and combine it with things like security, and it's the most energy efficient tier 4 data center in the UK as a result of that. So the uniqueness of a design that has cut costs, had a good environmental impact, and is sort of tier 4 secure compliant as well, and that's a fairly unique design.
That's a great stat.
Yep,
that's a great thing to shout about.
There are very few tier 4 data centers in the UK. Yeah. There aren't any as energy efficient as ours.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great stat. So brings me on to my next subject. Obviously, throughout all the podcasts we talk about, and when we're here, people talk about on-prem or data center and things, and people talk about hybrid working, where hybrid application where you're going to have some activity on-prem and obviously in data centers. You can't tell me that businesses in general are going to be as efficient running on-prem facilities as you got. I mean, you've just made that big statement. Yep. Is that going to be a real big issue for businesses moving forward? Because obviously society, as you're the benchmark, so let's just say you're the benchmark, and then they say, well, where's your data center? How efficient is that? Well, it's not as efficient as what these people are doing. Is that going to be more and more of an issue for companies and organisations?
I think it's going to be, yes, it is going to be more of an issue, and companies need to look at themselves, but probably also look at their supply chain. When people are making decisions around whether they work with a particular supplier of cloud services, or maybe a particular hardware supplier, if they're using on-prem, or if they use other hardware, and if they're in manufacturing, we need to to really look after the environment. We can't just look at ourselves. We need to look at our supply chain and the third parties that we work with to make sure that they have similar values to us, and that they're thinking on a similar way, and you sort of create a snowball effect here, that we're all conscious of the decisions that we make, and we want to work with the people that we have similar values to us.
Yeah, interesting. So has that forged a closer relationship from your perspective? Has that brought you closer to manufacturers of hardware, or are you more aware of what they're doing to actually reduce power consumption and how hardware is consuming power?
So what we try to do is make sure that it's part. We have a sort of procurement team that work on these topics, and like I said, there's sort of certain criteria that they need to meet, and that they do meet. We've stumbled on an area where I think the IT industry in general needs to become a lot better at it. I think we not only are very conscious around who we choose to provide our hardware, we're very conscious of the way what we dispose of it as well. And we're sort of very we're worried about the security implications, but also the environmental implications, and making sure that is recycled. But I think there is an opportunity here for our industry around not only to sort of the way our hardware is manufactured, but also how efficient it is. That there are sort of opportunities for some significant gains here. That the way that we run applications and the way that we manage hardware can be a lot more environmentally beneficial than the way that we currently do it. A server, it's smaller than it was.
Yeah.
But we haven't really fundamentally changed the design of a server in recent years, in any case, and there are opportunities for improvement there.
So are you going to see those servers rotated more now? So, i.e., if more efficient ones are coming on, and it's the responsibility of the manufacturers, the hardware manufacturers, to say, look, we've cut, and these servers here are 30% more efficient than the ones you've got. Do you see that data centers, businesses like yours, are going to rotate hardware faster?
Yeah, we will try to move to a more sort of on demand, so we don't have. We're working to our utilisation better, so that we don't have spare hardware. I think the other side of it, from an industry perspective, is that we need to make sure that we're working with applications that work in a more serverless environment, and therefore we're getting more microservices out of a sort of single bit of hardware, as opposed to everybody having a dedicated slice of hardware or dedicated slice of iron. We need to make sure that our applications that we're all working with as a environment, as a society, work in those types of environments, and so that there's less iron or less tin being created, but also we manage that on a more efficient basis then.
Yeah, really interesting. And we spoke on a previous podcast, didn't we, about observability and how important that is, and looking at containerization and the efficiency of that and usage. I guess that's going to be even more of a hot topic based around all of this as well.
Yeah, but even in this topic, once a week I will look at our energy consumption, and how compliant we are for, how efficient is our data center? Are we really, let's hold our own feet to the fire on this.
Yeah.
And if we're not as efficient as we say we are, let's do something about it.
Yeah,
we've managed our sort of previous data center for almost 20 years now, or in excess of 20 years, and at various times we've done things to make it as efficient as possible, and we use a sort of you're going to ask me what this abbreviation means, and I'm going to struggle, but it's PUE, and we look at how energy efficient each of our data center environments are, and I can sort of safely say that our new environment is a lot more efficient than our old environment, but it's something that we monitor on a regular basis. We can monitor it real time. I can sort of have a quick chat with our data center manager. Okay, what's our current PUE mark? And we're sort of able to sort of at any point in time understand how efficient we are.
Yeah, interesting. So there's reports saying out there that IT consumption will equate to more CO2 in the environment than over time than the airline industry. So obviously, again, that's going to be a big magnification of what's going on. What's the forums? When are you as an industry all getting together? Do you all get together as an industry and debate just these topics?
Yes, it's a big topic, and some of that is sort of brought on by regulation.
Yep.
In the EU, there's
is that getting tougher?
I don't know if it's getting tougher. I think regulators are probably still in catch-up mode, for want of a better expression, and therefore, as an industry, it's more we're sort of managing this, and we're leading this, and we're leading it because that's the way we think it should be, and that's what we think we should do. But also, to a certain extent, our clients and our customers are demanding that of us as well. And I do think that regulators are probably a little bit slower in this area and don't necessarily fully understand the technology. To be fair, it's a rapidly changing and advancing environment, and sometimes it's very difficult to keep up to speed with it.
So one might say, if it doesn't exist already, to have a forum of leading providers who are almost like I guess a pressure group, sort of talking to the policymakers to say, look, this is where we think this should be going. Because you want to take the heat off of you. You don't want the people thinking you're a bad industry in relation to the environment. So obviously leading with that, I would imagine over time will be quite an important thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, and we work in different spaces. I sort of touched on we work in the EU a lot, and there's forum Guy X, where they look at environmental topics, but they also look at security topics, and a framework for sort of making sure that our clients can go from one cloud environment to another cloud environment, and there's sort of interoperability so that end clients and end customers can have freedom of choice. So that framework is developing. It's just probably slightly behind the technology at this stage.
Yeah, well, you look at the future state of this, don't you? And we were talking, when we, funny enough, about a subject before this podcast. If we all came back in 100 years or 150 years time, what would this look like? And we've seen some crazy stuff where people have put data centers at the bottom of the ocean, or people might start putting them into the North Pole and things like that. What's the future state? Where's this all going to go, Simon? Where do you see it?
So I think there is a certain amount of benefit of locating your data center in a cool environment. You know, it's less costly, less environmental impact if your data center is in Finland compared to Spain or Southern Europe. That makes sense. But I think really a lot of we're already on that transition. You know, our company and lots of others are thinking about their data center. They're thinking about the type of energy it consumes, and we're looking to make sure it's as energy efficient. We're not there yet, but you know, there's a clear pathway there. I think what we need to do is understand how we can get the hardware to be more efficient, but also the applications on top of it to make sure that they're not using too much processor power and things like that. And there's some advancements that we need to do. We're not really looking at software providers yet and understanding how energy efficient is the software that you're running, and there's probably some advancements that we need to make there. And I think the other thing is that I touched on, if we run a data center, as we do, let's look for opportunities to reuse that heat that all those servers have generated, and how can we use that in the local community or put that to better use. You know, it might be that we're able to sort of heat community facilities or a housing estate, schools, or a factory, and we should look at those opportunities a bit harder.
Fascinating subject. Well, Simon, it's been really good talking to you about this today. And obviously, from Fasto's perspective and Fasto's ProActive perspective, you're certainly going in the right direction. It's been an absolutely privilege. Thank you very much. So next time, we've got Terry Hercombe joining us, who's the head of systems engineering at Fasto's ProActive, and he's going to talk about all the technologies you should consider when migrating to the cloud. So catch us next time. It's been a great session. Simon, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcast, or visit proactive.fasthost.co.uk for more info. See you next time.